And how do you keep an overview on, the different people who are managing risks, or is this a matter of trust again, really, that they're doing what you agreed would be done? The risk in overall terms is managed. Or?
We generally use risk registers to record who's responsible for a risk, the progress that's been made in understanding a risk, identifying what the impacts are. So we use risk registers to effectively record where we are in terms of a particular risk. I like to use a system where we can have it logged, or we can have it recognised as being a risk that's been assessed, or a risk that's been monitored, or a risk that's been closed out. And we can use various filters within the tool that is a risk register to record and communicate where we're at. But I see a risk register as a recording tool. Ultimately, the responsibility for doing any work behind the management of risks comes to individuals and the individuals that are best placed to manage those risks or assess those risks.
And are these assessed on a regular basis, sort of at project review meetings, or normal design meetings, or how would you sort of get the idea of progressing these risks?
I think you can take different approaches to it depending on the project and the scale of the project and the quantity of risks that you have in a project. As a project manager, I think you need to regularly have that oversight of what's happening. But how you choose to inform yourself and the team of where risks are at should be dependent on the project and the environment and the controls that you have in the project. So you could have a regular slot for risks on your weekly team meetings. It may be that you have a session once a month to review risks. I think you have to apply the right technique for the right project.
So in a sense, the project manager becomes very risk sensitive.
That's right.
As to outcomes being severe or not severe,
and to capture those risks and issues, and to alert people to risk and issues as the project develops, because they could happen at any time and not when you just have your regular slot to review risks formally.
I mean, the final part of this question would be that when you talk to people about risk, they say, oh, you can transfer that risk. And again, thinking about this supply chain idea, it's very easy to say, well, if they get it wrong, then they'll take the can for it. Is this something that happens without you sort of, which you then have to control because it's happening, because it's so ingrained, shall we say, within the industry to transfer the risk down the chain? To the level of incompetence sometimes, sort of an incapability.
You do have to have a level of involvement in control and be part of the debate as to how risks are transferred. Ultimately, risks should be transferred to the best individual or the best organisation that's placed to manage that risk. Ultimately, you can transfer all risks throughout the supply chain and down the supply chain, and the supply chain will put a price to those risks. If you have an unlimited pot of money and you want the supply chain to take all the risks, then you can pay for those risks to be transferred down. That, to me, doesn't create value within a project. And it's the supply chain that will benefit from those risks that would turn out in their favour, that perhaps they have no control over, but by the course of events they benefit from.
And I guess sometimes you have to look up the chain as well, where the client is trying to transfer the risks down and squeezing a supplier of the service more so than maybe would be of value to them. So they're saying, well, I'm not going to pay for that. If there's rock in the ground, the contractor's got to pay. And sort of, how do you deal with that?
Exactly.
Where you've got an overzealous
I
client
think
as well. Sort of.
That comes back to the taking responsibility for the project on behalf of the client and having the client's interests and best interests and the project's best interests at the heart of what you do, and advising against or using your expertise to inform the debate and to inform the decision-making process as to the pros and cons of making certain decisions, whether that's related to a risk or another part of the project. But I think that's where we as project managers can add value to the process, as we were talking about earlier, and certainly how project managers within ARUP certainly try and use their technical expertise and their understanding of the processes to provide that advice back to clients so that the right decision is made, not necessarily, or that a wrong decision isn't just acted upon because that's what the client has decided. That at least it's to inform the debate. Ultimately, the client will make the decision.